My university runs an event called Jailbreak every year where teams have 36 hours to get as far away from campus as possible without spending any money. Most teams manage to get into Europe and stuff, and me and my friend were hoping for the same. We got picked up on the M10 by an Albanian guy who was in convoy, following his Lithuanian friend who had just bought an old Merc. He basically told us that he would take us down the M10, and then around London on the M25, and then start to head down the M20 towards Dover and drop us off somewhere along there. For most of the journey, he was very unsettling. He said he was a physics teacher and I could tell he was lying. I'm a physics undergrad. In fact, the whole time he seemed to just be telling us conversational lies. To make matters worse, my friend who was sitting on the back seat fell asleep, and while she was dozing he used it as an excuse to lock the car doors. I suddenly realized something wasn't right when he came off the M25 and actually started driving into North London, something which wasn't on the plan at all. I started to get pretty scared at this point. When I asked him why we were driving into London and not staying on the M25, he kept saying, "My friend, he knows shortcut, we follow him." For non-UK people, driving through London city traffic definitely isn't shorter than driving around the M25, and even when I got out a map of London and asked him to point to where we were going, he was being very vague. I asked him if he could just drop us off at the nearest petrol station and he kept saying like, no, we nearly there, and stuff. Eventually, I told him that they were tracking our phones and that I had already texted someone else his number plate and his friend's number plate, all of which a lie, at which point he phoned his friend, spoke in another language, and then begrudgingly let us off at the next petrol station. It was the scariest experience of my life. The barn where I work is a pretty creepy place and we've had some really strange things happen there over the years. The most common things people witnessed were doors shutting on their own, creaking sounds from up in the loft, and inexplicable shadows showing up on our security cameras. For the most part, one never believed any of it and just assumed that the workers were messing with each other and trying to freak each other out. The barn is very old and there's a story going around that a kid hanged himself from the rafters way back when, so it's the perfect place for people to try and prank one another with ghost sightings. Anyway, I pretty much ignored all of this until one day when I was teaching a student to ride in our indoor ring. We heard the rafters creaking, and just assumed it was the wind or a cat or something. Then we noticed that the creaking sound was following the student around the ring. Anytime he stopped the horse, the sound would stop. The rafters are really thin, so there's no way someone could be walking up there without us noticing. Then, a few days after that, I was closing up for the night when I heard a very distinct humming noise that sounded like a child playfully humming a song. I thought nothing of it because I assumed either my last student was still outside the barn or that the girls I work with were fooling around trying to scare me. It went on for a good 3 minutes before I finally went to see what it was. No one was in the barn, or in the parking lot, or anywhere near enough for me to hear their humming. I eventually found the girls I worked with, but they were in the office far from there I was. I was pretty creeped out at that point. Finally, the last major incident I witnessed was when one of my coworkers opened the office door to go out and check the horses. Usually the door stays open for a moment then slowly closes. However, after she walked out, the door stayed open for way longer than normal, pushed itself more open, then quickly slammed shut. The girl was no longer near the door at that point, so there's no way she did it. Freaked out, she ran back into the office and we all watched out the door as the horses, one by one, poked their heads out, and watched an invisible thing move down the aisle. Some of them nickered at it and everything, and stretched their necks out toward it. It was the scariest moment in my life. So now I am not so quick to dismiss ghost stories as hoaxes or pranks. Some stuff that happens seriously cannot be explained.